Please, Mom, just sign here. Vanessa's voice was soft and sugary, just like when she was a little girl begging me for candy. But now she was 35, and her hand was pressing mine down onto a pen. Her husband, Sebastian, gripped my arm so tightly it felt like my bones were cracking. We were sitting inside a busy bank. People moved around us, chatting, counting money, doing everyday things, completely unaware of the nightmare unfolding at our little table. It's just routine, Mom, Vanessa said sweetly. Just a small transfer so we can finalize some paperwork. But I knew she was lying. I had seen the documents. It wasn't a small transfer. It was everything. My entire $50,000 in savings, everything I had left after my husband, Peter, passed away 3 years earlier. The air conditioner buzzed above us, but I felt hot and sick. The fluorescent lights burned my eyes and the clatter of cash-counting machines pounded in my skull. Vanessa smiled at the security cameras like we were a happy family running errands. Sebastian smiled too, but his fingers stayed locked on my arm like a steel clamp. Come on, Olivia, he whispered in my ear. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. His breath smelled like cigarettes and stale coffee. Think of your granddaughter, Caroline. Think of everything we've done for you. Everything they had done for me. The thought made my throat burn. I was the one who paid for Vanessa's college. I was the one who gave her the down payment for her house. I was the one who covered Sebastian's $20,000 debt when he lost his job. Money they never repaid. And now they were trying to steal the last thing I had, my widow's pension. The money Peter and I had saved throughout our 46-year marriage. My hand shook as I held the pen. The dark black ink on the crisp white paper looked so final. One signature, and it would all be gone. One signature, and I'd have nothing left. Vanessa leaned closer. Her sweet perfume mixed with the nervous sweat on my skin. Mom, trust me. It's for your own good. You can't handle this much money at your age. Her words were honey dipped in poison. I looked around desperately. The young teller was busy with customers. An older woman in line flipped through an insurance brochure. A man in a suit scrolled on his phone. No one noticed. No one saw that I was being robbed in broad daylight, robbed with fake smiles and soft voices. Sebastian squeezed my arm harder, forcing a small cry out of me. Quiet, he muttered through a fake smile. We don't want a scene, do we? His eyes were cold, and in that moment, I realized he was capable of anything. Vanessa, my own daughter, the baby I fed, the child I raised, sat there and let him hurt me without lifting a finger. The clock on the wall showed 3:15 p.m. A normal Tuesday. But the worst day of my life. I remembered how the morning had started. Vanessa had called, sounding urgent. Mom, we need to go to the bank. There are some papers you have to sign. It's important. No details. She never gave details, only orders wrapped in polite words. Just then, the bank manager, Mr. Thompson, a kind, older man, walked toward us with a professional smile. Everything all right here? Can I help with anything? Hope flickered inside me. This was my chance. My heart pounded. With trembling hands, I scribbled a quick message on a scrap of paper. Help. I'm being coerced. I don't want to sign. While Vanessa and Sebastian looked at the documents, I folded the note and slid it toward him. Mr. Thompson opened it quietly. His eyes widened. His polite smile shifted into controlled alarm. Our eyes met for a long second, an eternity, and I knew he understood. Without a word, he pressed the silent alarm under his desk. For the first time all afternoon, I felt a small wave of relief. Someone was going to help me. But before you can truly understand how I ended up here, shaking, terrified, begging for help, you need to know the whole story. You need to know who I was before I became this desperate woman in a bank. My name is Olivia Anderson. I'm 69 years old. And all my life, I've been the woman who always said yes, the woman who gave everything, who helped, who sacrificed, especially for my daughter, Vanessa. I remember the day she was born like it was yesterday. A bright spring morning. After 12 painful hours of labor, she finally arrived, tiny and perfect, with her father's green eyes. I held her close and promised she would never lack anything. I promised her love, support, protection. And I kept that promise for 35 years. Maybe too well. When Vanessa was 5, her father and I worked 2 jobs each just to buy her the pink bicycle she wanted so badly for her birthday. It cost $200, a huge amount for us back then, but the joy on her face made every extra hour worth it. When she turned 15, she begged to go to a summer camp that cost $1,500. I sold my grandmother's jewelry to make it happen. Then came college. "Mom, it's my dream," she cried. "I can't go to a state school. What will my friends think?" The private university she wanted cost $40,000 a year. Money we didn't have. Her father and I took out a loan using our home as collateral. I spent 4 years working extra shifts at the hospital cafeteria, cleaning tables late at night, my feet swollen, my back aching, so Vanessa could earn her degree. She graduated with honors in business administration. I cried with pride at her ceremony, believing I had finally fulfilled my duty as a mother. I thought I could rest. But Vanessa had other plans. At 25, she met Sebastian in a dive bar. He was handsome, yes, but there was a cold calculation in his eyes that unsettled me. When he introduced himself to me, the first thing he asked was, "Is your house paid off?" Not even a polite hello, just a question about money. I should have seen the warning sign. Their wedding cost $50,000. "Mom, I'm only getting married once," Vanessa pleaded. I wanted to be perfect. I wanted to tell her we couldn't afford it, that her father had just been diagnosed with diabetes and needed medication, but she looked so happy. I couldn't ruin it for her. So we took out another loan. The wedding was beautiful. Vanessa looked like a princess in her lace gown. Sebastian smiled, but I noticed how his eyes kept wandering toward the wealthier guests, studying them. After their European honeymoon, another $5,000 expense they insisted we pay, they moved into a small apartment. For a while, I thought they had finally learned responsibility. But then the calls started. "Mom, the refrigerator broke." "Mom, the car needs repairs." "Mom, Sebastian lost his job." "We can't pay rent." It was always urgent. Always a crisis. And I always said yes. $500 here, $1,000 there, little amounts that slowly chipped away at my security. 2 years into their marriage, they announced they wanted to buy a house. "It's an investment, Mom. A step toward the future." The house cost $200,000, and they needed $40,000 for the down payment. They had no savings. Their credit was terrible. "Could you help us, Mom?" Vanessa asked tearfully. "We promise we'll pay you back every penny." It was the biggest promise she ever made. And the biggest lie. I withdrew $40,000 from the retirement fund I had built over 20 years. Every dollar represented sacrifices, extra shifts, meals skipped, clothes I didn't buy, vacations I never took. The withdrawal came with a 10% penalty, $4,000 gone instantly. "Are you sure about this, ma'am?" the bank employee asked gently. "Once you withdraw these funds, there's no undoing it." I told him I was sure. It was for my daughter. For her future. For her stability. I walked into Vanessa's house with the check in my hand, feeling like a hero. Vanessa cried and hugged me tightly. "You're the best mom in the world. I promise I'll pay you back every cent, with interest." Sebastian hugged me too, though his embrace felt cold. "Thanks, Ma. This means a lot." 3 months later, they moved into their beautiful new home, 2 stories, 4 bedrooms, a big backyard perfect for a pool. Vanessa invited me to the housewarming. I walked through every room with pride. I thought my sacrifice had finally paid off. But the requests didn't stop. They only grew. Mom, we need furniture. We can't live on the floor. $10,000 for a living room set.
Music licensing.
Mom, the neighbors are complaining about the fence. $3,000 for a wooden fence. Mom, the kitchen is outdated. $8,000 for renovations and new appliances. Every time I hesitated, Vanessa knew exactly what to say. Mom, I thought you wanted us to do well. Mom, don't you want your granddaughter to live in a nice home? Caroline, my sweet granddaughter, became the strongest tool in Vanessa's arsenal. Caroline was born when Vanessa was 27. From the moment I held her, I knew she was special. She had her grandfather's curious eyes and a smile that softened even the hardest days. But unlike her mother, she had a kindness that was real. Whenever she visited, she'd bring drawings from school, crayon pictures where I was a huge, smiling grandma with long arms. I made you big because your love is big, Grandma, she'd say in her soft voice. How could I say no to anything for her? Ballet classes, $200 a month. Piano lessons, $300 a month. Summer camp, $2,500. Ballet recital outfits, $500 each. Caroline has talent, Mom, Vanessa insisted. We can't waste her potential. Meanwhile, my own finances were collapsing. Peter's diabetes worsened. His medications cost $400 a month, and insurance covered only part of it. He needed injections, specialist visits, and a strict diet of expensive foods. I worked double shifts. I'd come home with my feet bleeding inside my shoes, only to cook, clean, and care for my sick husband. My sister Clara noticed everything. Why don't you ask Vanessa for help? She asked during one of her visits. You've spent over $100,000 on her in the last 5 years. She should help with Peter's medical bills. But I couldn't bring myself to ask my daughter for money. I had always believed it was my job to take care of my family, not theirs to take care of me. I thought I had to be the strong one, the pillar holding everyone together. Peter passed away early on a Tuesday morning, 3 years after his diagnosis. I was holding his hand when he took his last breath, and I swear half of my soul left with him. We had been married for 46 years. He was my partner, my best friend, the only person who shared the burden of our hardest decisions about Vanessa. After his funeral, I sat alone in our empty house and realized I was completely broke. The medical bills, combined with everything I had given Vanessa over the years, had drained every part of our savings. Peter's life insurance payout was $50,000. That was all I had left to live on for the rest of my life. I put the money in a savings account and promised myself I would protect it. I was determined to make it last, to finally learn how to say no. But Vanessa had other plans. 2 months after Peter's funeral, Sebastian lost his job at a construction company. It was his racist boss, Vanessa cried over the phone. He fired him for no reason. We can't pay the mortgage. Mom, they're going to take the house. Caroline will have to change schools. She'll lose all her friends. They asked me for $20,000, just to stay afloat until Sebastian found another job. 6 months max, Vanessa promised. We'll pay you back with interest. It was almost half of everything I had left, but the thought of Caroline losing her home broke me. So I gave them the money. Sebastian found a new job 3 months later, but the money never came back. Whenever I asked, there was always a new excuse. We're paying old debts, Mom. We had car problems. Caroline needed dental work, and insurance didn't cover it. And now here I was, sitting in a bank, watching them try to take the last $30,000 I had left. My own daughter, the child I had raised with so much love, sat beside her abusive husband, smiling for the cameras while planning to leave me in complete poverty. Mr. Thompson came back to our table, flanked by 2 security guards trying to look casual, though their stiff posture betrayed them. Vanessa and Sebastian didn't notice. They were too busy studying the documents, calculating their victory like vultures circling a dying animal. Excuse me, Mr. Thompson said gently but firmly. I need to review a few details before we continue. Sebastian looked up, and for the first time I saw a flicker of fear in his eyes. What details? Everything's fine. Mrs. Anderson wants to transfer the money to her daughter. It's a family decision. His hand still gripped my arm, but he did it more subtly now, aware that people were watching. I understand, Mr. Thompson replied. But bank protocol requires me to verify that all parties are acting voluntarily and without pressure. His words cut through my panic like lightning splitting a dark sky. He looked directly at me. Mrs. Anderson, would you mind coming to my office for a brief verification? It's standard for large transactions. Vanessa immediately stiffened. That's not necessary, sir. My mother already made her decision. Didn't you, Mom? Her smile was strained now, almost cracking. We can do everything right here. No need for trouble. But Mr. Thompson was already standing, offering me his hand. It's bank policy, ma'am. No exceptions. The security guards positioned themselves nearby. It'll only take a few minutes, he added. I stood up, my legs trembling, and for the first time since we walked into the bank, Sebastian had to release my arm. Vanessa grabbed my other hand. Mom, don't make this hard. Just sign the papers. Let's go home. Caroline is waiting. She used my granddaughter's name like a master key, knowing it always opened the door to my weakness. I'll be right back, I whispered, afraid to meet her eyes. If I did, I knew I might break again. Mr. Thompson's office was small but warm. Family photos on his desk, a tiny cactus by the window. He sat across from me and closed the door. Mrs. Anderson, he said softly, tell me what's really going on. And then everything spilled out, the years of manipulation, the money I gave that never came back, the promises wrapped in guilt and lies, the way Sebastian had squeezed my arm, the way Vanessa used Caroline to control me. I told him those $30,000 were all I had left, and that losing them meant I'd have nothing. Nowhere to go. Mr. Thompson listened carefully, taking notes. When I finished, he let out a deep breath. Ma'am, what you're describing is financial coercion. In some cases, it's considered elder abuse. What your daughter and son-in-law are doing is illegal. Illegal. The word echoed in my mind. All these years, I believed it was my duty as a mother to give until I had nothing left. I never imagined what Vanessa was doing had a name, let alone that it could be a crime. What can I do? I whispered, my voice breaking. She's my daughter. I don't want to get her in trouble, but I can't live like this. I have nothing left. Mr. Thompson leaned forward. First, we're canceling this transaction. Second, I'm documenting everything you told me. Third, I'll give you information on legal and protective resources. But the biggest choice is yours. He paused. Are you ready to say no? Are you ready to set boundaries, even if it makes your daughter angry? His question hit me like a punch. Was I ready? For 69 years, I had been the woman who always said yes. The woman who always gave. The woman who sacrificed until she had nothing left. If I stopped being that woman, who would I be? I thought of Peter, working until his last day to support us. I thought of the years I ate beans so I could afford Vanessa's school. I thought of every night I stayed awake balancing bills and clipping coupons. And then I thought of Caroline, my sweet granddaughter, growing up watching her mother manipulate me. What was she learning? That love could be bought. That hurting the people who love you was acceptable. That aging relatives were tools to exploit until they were empty. Yes, I said at last, my voice steady and stronger than I expected. I'm ready. Mr. Thompson smiled gently and began writing. All right. We'll place an alert on your accounts. From now on, no one can make any transactions without your presence and an extra identity check. I'll also give you a hotline for reporting elder abuse. As he worked, I looked through the office window at Vanessa and Sebastian. Vanessa was pacing, speaking frantically on the phone. Sebastian sat stiffly, tapping his fingers on the table. They knew something was wrong. They knew their plan was unraveling. And for the first time in many years, I didn't feel guilty. Instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Control. Strength. The power to decide for myself. I finally had me back. Mr. Thompson finished writing and handed me several papers. This is a copy of the incident report. This is the number for the helpline. And this, he passed me a small card, is my direct extension. If they pressure or threaten you again, call me immediately. I took the papers with hands that, for the first time in years, weren't trembling. What do I do now? How do I tell them I'm not signing? Tell them the truth, Mr. Thompson said gently. That you're keeping your money for your living expenses. You don't owe anyone an explanation. It's your money, ma'am. You earned it. You saved it. You have every right to keep it. I took a deep breath. It was time to face my daughter. It was time to become someone who could finally say no. It was time to start living for myself. We walked out of the office together. Vanessa rushed over immediately, her expression a mix of worry and controlled anger. What took so long, Mom? We're going to be late. I looked at my daughter, the 35-year-old woman who had shaped her entire adult life around my inability to deny her anything. And for the first time in decades, I said the words that would change everything. I'm not going to sign, Vanessa. I'm not transferring my money. The silence that followed felt heavy enough to crush the room. Vanessa stared at me as if I had struck her. Her green eyes filled with shock and fury. Sebastian shot up from his chair, nearly knocking it over, his fists tightening at his sides. What do you mean you're not going to sign? Vanessa whispered sharply, trying to keep her fake smile alive for the cameras. Mom, we already talked about this. It's just temporary. It's not temporary, I said, hearing a firmness in my voice I didn't even recognize. And it's not a transfer. It's my retirement money, and I'm keeping it. Sebastian stepped closer, but the security guards moved at the same moment, placing themselves subtly between us. Olivia, he said in the soft, oily tone he used whenever he wanted to control me. Don't be silly. What are you going to do with that money? You don't have big expenses. We can invest it. Make it grow, for the whole family. For the whole family, I repeated, and a bitter laugh escaped me. Like when you invested the $40,000 for your house down payment? Or the $20,000 when you lost your job? Tell me, Sebastian, how much of that have you paid back? His fake concern slipped. His eyes hardened with the cold calculation I had been too blind to notice for years. Those were gifts, he hissed. You said they were gifts. I never said that, I replied, the words boiling inside me. You promised to pay me back. You promised it was temporary. You promised a lot of things you never kept. Vanessa began to cry, but these weren't childhood tears. These were rehearsed tears. Tears designed to break me. Mom, I can't believe you're doing this to me, she whispered. After everything we've shared, after all the love. Love? The word snapped out of me like a whip. You call threatening me love? You call it love when your husband hurts my arm? When you bring me here to drain every last dollar I have? People around us began to stare. An older woman in line frowned in concern. A young man stopped scrolling his phone. Vanessa noticed the eyes on us and lowered her voice, but her desperation grew sharper. Okay, she whispered. Then don't transfer everything. Just half. Just $10,000. That's all we need right now. What emergency, Vanessa? I asked quietly. Sebastian has a job. You have a house. What exactly is the crisis? Her silence was the answer. There was no crisis. There never had been. There were just two adults who had built their lives around my inability to say no. They spent more than they earned because they knew I would always fill the gap. Vanessa, I said softly, you're 35. Sebastian is 38. You both have college degrees I paid for.
Music licensing
You have income.
reimagined.
It's time to live within your means. What about Caroline? Sebastian said suddenly, playing the card he knew hit the deepest. What about your granddaughter? Are you going to let her suffer because you've decided to be selfish? That word hit me hard. Selfish. My entire life I had done everything possible to avoid being that. I sacrificed my own needs, dreams, comfort, so I would never be called selfish. But standing there, with my last $30,000 on the line, I understood something for the first time. Taking care of myself was not selfish. It was survival. Caroline will not suffer, I replied firmly. You're her parents. You can provide for her like millions of parents do every day. What you can't do is use her to control me. Mr. Thompson stepped forward. Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, you need to leave. Mrs. Anderson has made her decision. Continuing to pressure her is harassment. She's my mother, Vanessa snapped. I have a right to talk to my mother. Not when you're intimidating her, he answered. The guards will escort you out. Vanessa turned to me with an expression I had never seen, icy, sharp, filled with resentment that had clearly been there for years. Fine, Mom, she said coldly. If that's what you want. But don't come crying to us when you're old and alone in that empty house. And don't call us when you're sick, Sebastian added. We're not your personal nurses. Their words were meant to scare me. To make me picture a future where I was helpless and alone. And it worked, partially. A chill ran through me. What if I did get sick someday? What if I needed help? Then I remembered what Peter had told me before he died. We'd been watching a documentary about scams targeting older people. Olivia, he had said, fear is what manipulative people use to control you. They make you imagine all the terrible things that could happen. But most of those things never do. And if something does happen, you deal with it then. Not before. I understand, I told Vanessa softly. If that's how you feel, I accept it. But I'm not changing my decision because I'm afraid. One of the guards stepped closer. It's time to go. Vanessa grabbed her purse angrily. This isn't over, Mom. We'll talk at home. No, I said firmly. We won't. Not until you can accept my decision without trying to undo it. They walked away without looking back, two figures disappearing into the parking lot, carrying years of manipulation with them. When they were gone, I sank into a chair. My legs trembled, not from fear, but from the release of a burden I had carried for decades. I had done something I never thought I could. I had said no to my daughter. I had chosen myself. Mr. Thompson sat down beside me. How do you feel? He asked gently. I thought about it. Scared, I admitted quietly. But also free. Like I'm finally breathing after holding my breath for years. The days that followed were some of the hardest of my life. Not because I missed Vanessa or Sebastian, but because I had to face the truth about who I had been for so long. I sat in my quiet living room, surrounded by family photos that suddenly felt like strangers watching me from their golden frames. And I asked myself the questions I had avoided for decades. When did I lose my voice? When did I stop being Olivia and become nothing more than Vanessa's mother? The calls began that very night. My phone rang every hour with Vanessa's name flashing across the screen. I ignored every single one. By the second day, the text messages started. Mom, we need to talk. Mom, Caroline is asking about you. She's so sad. Mom, Sebastian says he's sorry if he hurt you. He didn't mean to. Each message was another needle trying to poke through the thin armor of strength I was desperately trying to build. On the third day, they came to my house. I saw them through the curtains, Vanessa in a yellow dress, the one she knew I loved on her. Sebastian wearing his most polite smile. And little Caroline between them, holding a drawing. My heart ached at the sight of my granddaughter, but I didn't open the door. Vanessa rang the bell for 10 straight minutes, then started knocking. Mom, I know you're in there. Your car is outside. Please, we just want to talk. Her voice grew more and more desperate. Caroline misses you. Look, she made you a drawing. Then I heard a small voice, the one that always melted me. Mommy, why won't Grandma open the door? Did I do something wrong? That innocent question almost made me crumble. I almost opened the door. I almost fell back into the familiar trap of guilt and manipulation. But then I remembered Mr. Thompson's words. Fear and guilt are the strongest tools manipulators use. I stepped away from the window and went to my bedroom. I turned on the small radio Peter had given me for our 30th anniversary and let classical music drown out their voices. After an hour, they finally left. That night, my younger sister Clara called. Olivia, she said, Vanessa told me what happened. She said you'd become paranoid and think they were trying to steal from you. Her tone had that familiar condescending edge, like she thought I was losing my mind. She said they only wanted to help you invest your money. Is that what she told you? I asked sharply. Did she also tell you her husband hurt my arm? Did she tell you I had to slip a secret note to the bank manager to get help? Clara went quiet. He really hurt you? He did, I said firmly. And Vanessa saw it and did nothing. The words came out easier now. Each time I spoke the truth, I felt stronger. Clara, they've taken over $100,000 from me in 10 years. And they've never paid back a single cent. Now they wanted the last $30,000 I have. But Olivia, Clara said softly, she's your daughter. Families help each other, I said. But this isn't help. This is exploitation. There's a difference between supporting someone and being used like a personal ATM. After we hung up, I realized even the people closest to me had no idea what I had truly endured. They had seen the money transfers, but not the manipulation behind them. They saw the generosity but not the emotional pressure. How do you explain years of subtle abuse when others only ever saw the surface? On the fourth day, Caroline came to my house alone. My heart nearly stopped when I saw her tiny figure in her school uniform standing on my porch with her pink backpack. This time, I opened the door immediately. An 8-year-old wasn't responsible for her parents' choices. Hi, Grandma, she said, her smile bright enough to break me in two. Mommy says you're mad at us. Did I do something wrong? I knelt down, blinking back tears. No, sweetheart. You did nothing wrong. Grandma is not mad at you. Then why don't you come visit? And why don't you answer when Mommy calls? Her green eyes looked up at me, Vanessa's eyes, but filled with innocence instead of manipulation. Caroline, I said softly, sometimes adults have problems they need to work on. But that doesn't change how much I love you. I will always love you. Can I come in? I made you a new drawing. Of course I let her in. We sat in the living room while she explained her picture. It was like all the others, me as a giant grandma with huge arms. But this time, the grandma in the drawing looked sad. Why is Grandma sad? I asked gently. Because Mommy says you're sad. She says some bad man at the bank told you scary things. My heart dropped. Vanessa had already started rewriting the story, painting me as confused, vulnerable, manipulated. Caroline, I said firmly, there are no bad men. The men at the bank were kind. They helped me. Then why does Mommy? I cut her off gently. Just like when kids see the same cloud but think it looks like different animals, adults sometimes see things differently too. She nodded, accepting the explanation. We colored together for almost an hour. For a moment, it felt like the world hadn't changed. But when it was time for her to leave, she asked a question that crushed me. Grandma, are you not going to give me money for my ballet classes anymore? Even at 8 years old, she had learned to associate love with money. Caroline, I said softly, do you love me because I give you money, or because I'm your grandma? She hesitated. I love you because you're my grandma, but money is good too. Mommy says that's why you're the best grandma. In that moment, I saw the damage my years of saying yes had done. I had taught my granddaughter that love came attached to a dollar amount. "Sweetheart," I said, "I love you for who you are. Not for anything money can buy. Real love isn't something you purchase." She nodded, but I could tell she didn't fully understand. How could she, when she had been raised on the opposite lesson? When Vanessa arrived, she didn't even bother getting out of the car. She sat in the driveway and honked like I was a babysitter whose shift had ended. Caroline waved goodbye and climbed into the back seat, disappearing behind the tinted windows. That night, sitting alone in my living room, I realized that over the years, I hadn't just lost my money. I had lost pieces of myself, my identity, my voice, my sense of worth. But I also realized something else. For the first time in decades, I had a chance to take all of it back. A week after the incident at the bank, just as I was getting used to the unusual quiet of my phone not ringing all day, someone came to my door. It was Sunday afternoon. I was watering the plants in the garden Peter loved so much when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw a young woman I didn't recognize at first. Tall, brown hair in a ponytail, a shy but familiar smile. When I opened the door, I froze. She looked like Caroline, just older, maybe 18. For a moment, I thought I was looking at a future version of my granddaughter. But then the young woman spoke. "Mrs. Anderson, my name is Caroline, but not your granddaughter Caroline. I'm your great-niece. Clara's son Arthur is my father." Her voice was soft but steady. I invited her inside. "Would you like some tea?" I asked. We settled in the living room, and this other Caroline began explaining why she had come. "My dad told me what happened at the bank. Aunt Clara told him everything, and he asked me to talk to you." She hesitated for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "You see, Mrs. Anderson, I went through something very similar with my own mother." She then told me her story while our tea sat untouched. Her mother, Arthur's ex-wife, had developed a severe gambling addiction after the divorce. For years, she manipulated Caroline into giving her money from her part-time jobs, from her college savings, and even went so far as to forge her signature on several student loans. "It was always an emergency," she said quietly. "Always the last time. She always swore she'd pay me back. She just needed a little more time." "What did you do?" I asked, though deep down, I already knew the answer. At first? Nothing. She was my mother. I thought loving her meant helping her no matter what. Good daughters help their mothers, right? Her voice carried the same bitterness I had been feeling for months. But then I realized she wasn't asking for love, she was asking for survival. Her survival, at the expense of mine. She explained how she had finally cut all contact for 2 years. She ignored the desperate calls, the guilt-soaked messages, even the suicide threats that later proved to be manipulation. "It was the hardest thing I've ever done," she admitted. "But it saved me." "And now?" I asked. Her smile was small, but real. "We're better. Only because I set boundaries and refused to move them. We finally have an honest relationship. She knows she can't ask for money, and she knows if she lies or manipulates, I will walk away again. And when we took money out of the equation, we found real love under all the dysfunction." Her words gave me something I hadn't felt since the day at the bank: hope. "Do you think it's possible?" I asked softly. "Could Vanessa and I ever have a real relationship someday?" "I can't promise that," she said gently. "It depends on whether she wants to change. But what I do know is this: you have to protect your boundaries, even when it hurts." Before leaving, she told me about a support group at the downtown library for people who had experienced financial abuse from their own families. I almost laughed at the idea, but she insisted. "You'd be surprised how many people go through this," she said. And then she gave me a warm, lingering hug. "What you did at the bank was incredibly brave. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting yourself." That week passed quickly. For the first time in years, I did things simply because I wanted to. I read books I'd ignored for decades. I walked alone in the park Peter and I once visited every Sunday. I cooked meals I enjoyed, not the ones Vanessa preferred during her visits. On Tuesday night, I found myself standing outside the library, debating whether to leave. But I went in. In a small room at the back, 12 people sat in a circle, men and women of all ages, most of them over 50. The facilitator, a kind woman named Sandra, told me to introduce myself only if I wanted to. I listened to their stories, each one echoing pieces of my own: a 70-year-old woman whose son stole $100,000 using forged checks, a man who mortgaged his home 3 times to cover his brother's gambling debts, a woman whose daughter convinced her to transfer the house into her name, only to sell it behind her back. When it was finally my turn to speak, the words poured out of me like a dam breaking. I told them everything, about Vanessa, the years of subtle manipulation, the incident at the bank. I expected judgment. I expected someone to call me foolish. Instead, I found understanding. I found compassion. I found people who truly knew what I had been living through. Financial abuse is one of the hardest kinds of abuse to recognize, Sandra said gently. Because it hides behind love, family duty, and guilt. Another woman, Eleanor, offered the advice that stayed with me the longest. You're going to doubt yourself 1,000 times, she said. You'll wonder if you were too harsh. You'll think about calling her, apologizing. But whenever those thoughts come, remember how you felt in that bank. Fear doesn't lie. That night, when I came home, 3 voicemails from Vanessa were waiting on my answering machine. For the first time, I heard them with clarity, each one a different tactic. Mom, Caroline asks about you every day. She's depressed, she doesn't understand why you don't want to see her. Then, Mom, Sebastian, and I think you should see a doctor. This isn't normal behavior. And finally, Mom, are you sure you're not having memory problems? Have you considered dementia? I deleted them all. The next morning, while making breakfast, the phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. Grandma? It was Caroline. The real Caroline, the 8-year-old. Mommy borrowed her phone from work to call you because you won't answer at home. My heart tightened. Hello, sweetheart. How are you? I miss you. When are you coming to visit? When are we going to the park again? I felt my resolve begin to crack. Caroline, Grandma loves you very much. But Mommy and I need to solve some grown-up problems first. Are you going to fix them soon? My birthday is in 2 months and I wanted to ask you for something. There it was. The real reason behind the call. What did you want to ask for, sweetheart? A new dress for my ballet recital. Mommy says it's $200 and they don't have money this month. And suddenly, everything was clear. Vanessa had sent her child, her innocent daughter, to do the begging she could no longer do. Caroline, I said softly but firmly, let me talk to your mom. I heard Vanessa in the background telling her to hand over the phone. When Vanessa spoke, her tone was different, cold, calculated. Caroline misses you. She's been so sad since you decided to cut us out of your life. Vanessa, I said sharply. You know I haven't cut Caroline out. I've set boundaries with you and Sebastian. Caroline is always welcome. But you will not use my love for her to manipulate me. Manipulate you? Mom, it's a dress. Any normal grandmother? It became manipulation when you used your daughter to ask for money after I told you I wouldn't fund your lifestyle anymore. Silence. When she finally spoke, her mask slipped. Fine. Yes. I told her to ask. Because that's who you've always been, the grandma who gives. The one who makes everything possible. And now you suddenly don't want to be that person. How do I explain that to a child? You explain, I said steadily, that love doesn't require money. And that you are responsible for your daughter's needs. Vanessa let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Needs? Mom, we live paycheck to paycheck. Sebastian covers the basics. But the things that make Caroline's childhood special? Those were always you. You liked being the hero. You liked being the savior. You liked being needed. Her words stung because she wasn't completely wrong. For years I had found my worth in rescuing them. You're right, I admitted, hearing her gasp on the other end. I loved being needed. I loved being the one who could solve everything. But Vanessa, do you know what that did to us? It made you dependent. And it made me believe I wasn't loved unless I was giving. Don't say that, she whispered, yet the certainty in her voice was gone. It's the truth, I said softly. And we're passing that same poison on to Caroline. She's learning that love is something you purchase. That relationships depend on money. Another long silence. Then Vanessa's voice cracked, really cracked. So what do I do now, Mom? How do I tell her she can't be in the recital? How do I tell her we can't afford the dress? For the first time in a very long time, there was no manipulation in her voice, only fear. Genuine fear. The fear of a mother who couldn't meet her child's expectations. And in that moment, I finally understood something important. Vanessa wasn't just manipulating me. She was also helplessly dependent in a way that she didn't know how to escape. Vanessa, I said gently, have you thought about talking to the ballet school? They often have assistance programs, or they might lend used costumes. Have you tried selling things you don't need anymore? Have you looked into part-time work? It's not that easy, Mom. It's not that easy, she repeated. I know it's not easy, I said calmly, but it is possible. Millions of families find solutions every day without asking their aging parents for money. But you're not just any aging parent, Vanessa snapped. You have money. You can help us. Why is it so awful that we're asking for a little support? It's not a little help, Vanessa, I said, my voice firming. In the past 10 years, you've asked me for more than $100,000, and you haven't paid back a single cent. And it's not just the money. It's the manipulation, the lies, and now even physical aggression. Sebastian didn't mean to hurt you, she said quickly. He was just nervous. Sebastian grabbed my arm so hard he left bruises, I reminded her. And you saw it. You stood there and did nothing. The memory of that moment in the bank flashed vividly in my mind, Sebastian squeezing my arm, desperation and anger in his eyes, and Vanessa just watching. Your husband was willing to hurt me to get my money, I said quietly. And you were fine with it. I wasn't okay with it, she insisted. Your silence was agreement, Vanessa, I said softly. Your inaction was complicity. We talked for another 20 minutes, but it felt pointless. We were speaking different languages. Vanessa saw my boundaries as selfishness. I saw her insistence as abuse. She thought my long history of helping her meant I should keep giving. I saw it as evidence that I had allowed a toxic pattern to form. When we finally hung up, without resolving anything, I sat in my kitchen feeling both sad and relieved. Sad because I realized our relationship might never heal without one of us changing completely. Relieved because, for the first time, I had spoken honestly without letting guilt control me. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went for a walk downtown by myself. I wandered past shops I had always wanted to explore but never had time for. I stepped into a bookstore and bought 3 novels recommended in my support group. Then I went to a cafe and ordered an expensive dessert simply because I wanted it. As I sat there, savoring a slice of chocolate cake without worrying about the cost or feeling the need to justify the expense, a revolutionary thought came to me. I was allowed to spend money on myself. I was allowed to make decisions for my own life. I didn't need anyone's permission. For the first time in decades, I felt free. That night, as I read one of my new novels with a cup of hot tea beside me, the phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, so I let it go to voicemail. But when I heard the voice, I stood up quickly to answer. Grandma, it's Caroline, the older Caroline, your great niece. I wanted to see how the support group went. And I also want to invite you to dinner on Saturday. My dad is cooking, and he wants to get to know you better. For the first time in weeks, I felt a genuine smile spread across my face. I had lost a toxic relationship with my daughter, but I had gained something unexpected, family who cared about me, not my wallet. I would love that, I said softly. And as I spoke, I felt a new version of myself beginning to grow. 6 months after the incident at the bank, I woke up in a room I didn't recognize. The curtains were different, the light came in at a strange angle, and the air smelled like jasmine instead of the heavy sadness that clung to my old house. Then I remembered, I was in Tuscany, in a small bed and breakfast I had booked for my 2-week trip to Italy. My first international trip alone, paid for entirely with my own money. The trip had been Caroline's idea. She had become a constant, healing presence in my life. Mrs. Anderson, she had told me during one of our weekly dinners, you've spent 69 years living for other people. It's time you lived for yourself. She had shown me pictures of small Italian towns, flower markets, rolling vineyards. Wouldn't you like to see the world with your own eyes? She asked. At first, the thought seemed absurd. Women like me didn't travel alone through Europe. Women like me stayed home, taking care of others, waiting for life to reward them someday. But then I remembered something from the support group. Limiting beliefs are chains we put on ourselves. So, I booked the trip. I got a passport for the first time. I bought new luggage. Comfortable walking shoes. And I didn't ask anyone for permission. When Vanessa found out, she was furious. You're spending your retirement money on a trip to Europe? Mom, that money is for emergencies. What if you get sick? What if you need medical care? Vanessa, I said, surprisingly calm, I have insurance. I have savings for real emergencies. And after 40 years of working and saving, I deserve to spend some of it on my own happiness. What about us? She demanded. What if we need help while you're gone? Then you'll do what any functional adult does, I replied. You'll solve your own problems. And I hung up, without guilt. Now, sitting on the terrace of the bed and breakfast with a cup of Italian coffee and a warm cornetto, I thought about that conversation and smiled. Below me stretched a green valley filled with ancient olive trees. Other travelers walked along the paths, young couples, families, and women my age traveling alone, glowing with freedom. My phone buzzed. For a second, my heart tightened, fearing a guilt-ridden message from Vanessa. But it was Caroline. How's Italy? Send me photos. Red heart, red heart, red heart. I snapped a picture of the valley and replied, it's even more beautiful than I imagined. I feel like a completely new person. She texted back instantly. You're not a new person. You're finally becoming the person you always were, you just never allowed yourself to be. Her words echoed in my mind as I began walking toward the village along the cobblestone streets. I thought about all the changes since that day at the bank. I had expected emptiness after separating from Vanessa, because for so many years my identity had been built on being needed, being the fixer, the dependable one. But instead of emptiness, I found space. Space to enjoy silence without worrying who was upset with me. Space to form friendships with people who valued my personality, not my money. Space to rediscover pieces of myself that had gone quiet long ago. I met Eleanor, a 75-year-old woman in my support group who had survived a toxic relationship with her son. We became friends and started painting classes at the community center. I discovered I actually had talent, apparently, landscapes came naturally to me. I never would have learned that if all my time and money were still going to Vanessa's demands. I also began volunteering at a shelter for women escaping domestic violence. I met women of all ages who were rebuilding their lives, just like me. The work was heavy but deeply fulfilling. For the first time in my life, I was helping others from a place of strength, not fear, not guilt, not codependency. And the most surprising part was this: my finances were better than they had been in years. Without Vanessa and Sebastian constantly draining me with their demands, I had finally built a proper emergency fund. I had even invested a small portion of my savings. For the first time in decades, I could afford little luxuries, like this trip, without worrying about how I would survive the next month. I was carrying grocery bags filled with fresh tomatoes, basil, and handmade pasta, ready to cook dinner in my small kitchenette, when I received an unexpected call. It was Mr. Thompson, the bank manager who had saved me on that terrible day that now felt like it belonged to another lifetime. "Mrs. Anderson," he said in his warm, professional voice. "I hope you don't mind me calling while you're on vacation. I got your number from Caroline, your great niece. I had some news I thought you'd want to hear." My heart tightened. "What kind of news?" "Vanessa and Sebastian came to the bank last week," he continued. "They tried to access a joint account they apparently had with you for several years, an account they didn't know we had placed alerts on after the incident." I froze. "What joint account? I don't remember that." "It seems," he explained gently, "that 3 years ago, when you were taking care of your husband, Vanessa convinced you to add her name to one of your savings accounts. She told you it was for emergencies. Do you remember signing anything?" I searched my memory. I vaguely recalled signing papers during those chaotic days after Peter's diagnosis, days when I barely slept and trusted Vanessa completely. "The account had $12,000, Mr. Thompson said. They attempted to withdraw everything. The system automatically blocked the transaction. When I explained they couldn't touch a cent without your presence and explicit authorization, they became aggressive. We had to call security." $12,000. Money I had completely forgotten existed. Money Vanessa had probably been waiting to steal at the perfect moment. That terrible day at the bank hadn't been their first attempt, only their most desperate. "What did you do with the account?" I asked quietly. "We transferred everything into an account under your name only," he said. "All other signatories have been removed. The money is safe." After I hung up, I sat on the terrace of my small hotel room, watching the Tuscan sky turn orange, violet, and rose. 12,000 unexpected dollars. Money I could use for more trips. More art classes. More donations. More joy. Money I could finally spend without guilt, because now I understood something essential. I deserved to invest in my own happiness. The next morning, my last day in Tuscany, I walked to a little cafe in the main square and opened my journal, something the support group had encouraged me to begin. On a blank page, I wrote the words that marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of a new one. Today, I don't need permission to live. I don't need to justify my joy. I don't need to apologize for choosing myself. I spent 69 years paying to be loved. But I've discovered that real love is priceless. And most importantly, I have learned to love myself. I closed the journal. The sun warmed the ancient stones. People laughed in languages I didn't understand. And I sat there quietly, knowing I was exactly where I wanted to be, free, peaceful, and finally living for me. This wasn't revenge. It was liberation. 2 years after my trip to Italy, I woke up in a house that looked unfamiliar for a moment, a small cottage with a little garden, in a quiet neighborhood across town. I had sold the house I shared with Peter for 40 years, 6 months after returning from Europe. It held too many memories, too many shadows of the woman I used to be. This house was different. This house was mine. Chosen by me. Decorated by me. No ghosts in the corners. Only sunlight and silence. It was a Saturday morning. I was making coffee when the doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw a familiar figure on my porch. Caroline. But not the little 10-year-old girl I held in my memories. She was taller now, thinner, quieter, an 11-year-old with seriousness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. My heart stuttered. I opened the door slowly. "Hi, Grandma," she said, her voice steadier and more grown-up than I remembered. "Can I come in? I have something important to tell you." I let her in, trying not to tremble from the mix of joy and fear twisting inside me. "How did you find me, sweetheart? Do your parents know you're here?" Aunt Clara gave me your address, she said as she sat on my sofa as naturally as if she'd been visiting forever. And no. Mommy doesn't know. I told her I was going to my friend Maria's house. She looked changed. Taller, yes. But also older in a way no child should have to be. A determination in her eyes that felt painfully familiar, a reflection of myself during the hardest years of my life. Caroline, I said softly, sitting across from her. Tell me what's going on. She took a deep breath. Grandma. I need to ask you something. And I want you to tell me the truth. Her green eyes locked onto mine, intense, brave, searching. And I felt the world pause. Is it true that Mommy and Daddy tried to steal money from you at the bank? The question hit me like a punch to the gut. For 2 years, I had waited for this moment. I had rehearsed every possible answer, imagined every reaction, planned how to protect her innocence while telling the truth. But now she was sitting in front of me, looking straight into my eyes with that intensity, and every carefully prepared word vanished. Who told you that? I asked, buying time. No one told me directly, Caroline said, her voice steady. But I've been listening for 2 years. The fights, the phone conversations, the things they say thinking I don't understand. I've heard it all. She paused, then added softly, and I found some of the letters you wrote me. Mommy had hidden them in her closet. My letters? I asked, my throat tight. Yes, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I kept every one. They said you loved me. That it wasn't my fault we didn't see each other. That you hoped someday we could be together again. Her voice cracked slightly. Why did Mommy lie to me? Why did she tell me you didn't care about our family anymore? I took a deep, steadying breath. It was the moment of truth. The moment I had both dreaded and longed for. Caroline, I said gently, your mom and I had some very serious problems about money. Adult problems that were hard to solve. But, is it true that they tried to take all your money? She looked at me with wide, searching eyes. I made a choice in that instant. She was 11, but she had grown up amidst this chaos. She deserved the truth, honest, age-appropriate, real. Yes, my love, I said firmly. Caroline nodded slowly, as though that one confirmation fit the last missing piece of a puzzle she had been assembling for years. That's why I don't live in the old house anymore. That's why I don't give money for special things. That's why Mommy always gets sad and angry when someone mentions your name. I softened my voice. How do you feel knowing this? She thought for a long moment. Confused, she admitted. Because I love Mommy and Daddy, but I also know what they did was wrong. And it makes me sad that you've been alone all this time. I haven't been alone, Caroline, I said. And it was true. I had spent the last 2 years learning to take care of myself, finding friends, and building a life filled with joy. I've been happier in these 2 years than I have in a long time, I told her. I shared stories of my painting classes, my volunteer work, my new friends. I showed her my paintings, and her eyes lit up as she recognized familiar landscapes from the photos I had shared online. After a while, she looked at me with a seriousness that broke my heart and said, Grandma, when I grow up, when I'm 18 and can make my own choices, I want a real relationship with you. Not like before. What do you mean, not like before? I asked. Before, she said, her voice steady, when I visited, it always felt weird. Mommy wanted me to ask you for things, or the visits seemed like they had a purpose I didn't understand. I want to visit you just because I like being with you. I want to know the real you, not just the grandma who gives gifts. We hugged for a long time. In that embrace, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, genuine hope. Hope for a future built on trust, honesty, and love, not manipulation or fear. Caroline stayed for 2 more hours. We walked through my garden, where I showed her the flowers and herbs I had planted. We made cookies together, and she told me about school, new interests, and the book she was reading. When it was time to go, she hugged me tightly again. Grandma, she said, can I ask you a favor? Of course, my love, I said. Keep writing me letters. But now that I know where you live, you can send them directly to me. Or to Maria's house, and she'll give them to me. I promised I would. I watched her ride away on her bicycle, pedaling with purpose toward her complex, growing life, but carrying with her a new understanding of the truth. That night, sitting in my garden with a cup of tea and my journal, I wrote. Today, my granddaughter found me. Not the manipulated child I once knew, but a brave young girl seeking the truth for herself. In her, I see hope that real love can survive lies, and authentic relationships can flourish even after years of toxicity. I closed the journal and gazed at the stars. For the first time in my life, the future felt full of possibilities, not obligations. I was 71 years old, and I was finally learning how to truly live.